We're starting. I know I'm late, and the reason why, the service is just normal, but we had, after church, took me like 5 minutes longer to get out of there than normal. That's just strange. I didn't understand that, but that's what happened. So don't think the service is extra long. It's not. It's just took a while to... Well, I always do, but this time... Well, I gave out applesauce in children's message. I got so much. And then we had a little girl who turned one, the one, she truly turned one, and then their little girl turns one, so I had to give her applesauce because she didn't come up with children's message. So I had to stop and give her one. Then I had to talk to someone else because someone gave me a bunch of jars, said, you want a jar of apples? Yeah, I'll take one. So I had to give her one. And so you just add that, 20 seconds, 30 seconds here, you add it up several times, you got 5 minutes.
Go at least get speed.
I could, but it didn't work. It didn't work that way. That's just the way it is. Then I had to carry the big box out. It took me 3 trips to get out of the church, so instead of 1. 3 trips to get out of the church. All righty. We're going to get started, though. I had the wrong bookmark. Okay, that was... Well, we did in Houston. Okay, in Salem. Okay, we're on Daniel 3:13. We're halfway through this fiery furnace ordeal. Okay, so we'll just kind of pick it up there and just keep going because it's really, really awesome to look at this. And I was hoping to get more done today than we'll probably get done. All right, so we're going to start right into it. And I'm going to read his translation again, starting at verse 13. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in a furious rage, said to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then these men were brought before the king. Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that my gods you do not serve, and the statue of gold that I set up you do not worship? Now, if you are ready, at the time when you hear the sound of," here we go again, "the horn, the flute, the lyre, the harp, triangular harp, drum, and all kinds of musical instruments, you will fall down and worship the statue I made. But if you do not worship, immediately you'll be thrown into the flaming furnace of fire. Then what God will save you from my hand?" All right, so that's the text right now, and so we get in. Okay, hopefully you know where we're already at. I don't want to review it all again because it always takes a lot of time. So there's a statue. I am going to review a little bit. There's a statue that they'll bow down and worship to show their loyalty to Nebuchadnezzar. All right, all the provincial officials have to do this. It's not the whole people in general. It's just the ruler or the leaders of various levels of government. Daniel's not here because Daniel's not in the province. He's in the city. So he doesn't have to do this. He's probably already pledged his loyalty. All right. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they are provincial officials. All right. So they did not bow down the first time this happened. Okay. They didn't bow down. And they were called out by the Chaldeans, or the astrologers, as it's translated, some, and because who are jealous of these 3 Jews who are their bosses. So they got called out. And basically the point of being called out to Nebuchadnezzar is saying, these guys whom you appointed to be our bosses aren't serving you. They're going behind your back, and thus they are basically traitors to you. So you need to get rid of them. That way, then we get promoted. Then, all right. So that's kind of how it's working. It's all just a jealousy thing and a political thing. It really has nothing to do with the religion. That's what they trump up the charges to be, because that's how they get Nebuchadnezzar mad. So here we go. Nebuchadnezzar is furious when he hears this, right? Okay, so he calls them to himself, and he basically calls them out. He says, "Okay, is this what happened? Is this true? Do you fail to do this? All right." Now Nebuchadnezzar realizes that if they get by with this, his authority will be questioned. Okay, and he has absolute authority. And if you can get by with this, it's kind of like in a way, scaled down way. If you're a teacher in a classroom and you let a student get by with something that others don't get by with, then where's the integrity of the teacher, right? Okay, it's gone. So Nebuchadnezzar actually has to do something about this. Okay, now what he'll do is still not right, but he has to do something about it. All right, because not only that, because the charges are not just they don't show loyalty to you. They don't worship our gods. Okay? And now Nebuchadnezzar in that culture, as in many cultures, it's that way, whoever's the ruler of the people is also responsible for making sure the people worship the gods properly. Because if you don't, then the gods will come after you. All right, so Nebuchadnezzar has that responsibility. He has to make sure they worship our gods. Okay, that's kind of a standard thing. All right, and in fact, even in Christianity, it's kind of that way, by the way. You go back to the Reformation days, what was Luther's? Luther was like, if your servants don't memorize their catechism, your house servants, don't feed them. Don't feed them. And even if the people in the society don't go to church, then don't give them any privileges or honors. Because when it was very strong Christian in that time, that's kind of, it was that way there too. All right, you better do what you're called to do, and so that's why people did it in name only, and they didn't really do it. So that's what Nebuchadnezzar's doing. But now the key is this: when he brings them before him, okay. First of all, why does he give him a second chance? Exactly, yeah. He invested himself in these three guys, and he himself put them in that position. So it helps him save face if he just gives them a second chance. Because the order was, there is no second chance. The order, if you don't fall down, you're thrown in the fiery furnace. But he gives them a second chance so that, in a way, he can save face. All right? So he does that. But then the best part about this is that last line, you know, where he says, if you don't worship, you'll immediately be thrown in the fiery furnace. But the last line is, then what God will save you from my hand. All right? You get it? What is he now saying? I'm mightier than God. I am the absolute autocratic authority here. I can do whatever I want, and no God can save you. Okay? So what is this? It's a challenge not to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. It's a challenge to God. All right? And that's what you have to see this as. This is really a battle between the gods. All right? And now you can see why Nebuchadnezzar can say this with such conviction. Because what does he actually think about their God? Exactly. I conquered you. I took your God's stuff out of the temple. He didn't do anything to stop me because he couldn't. So he's not going to do anything to stop me now because he can't. I have more power than your God. All right? So you get that? I mean, that's awesome because in reality, you know, you get that happening a lot when they do persecute Christians. And basically what they're doing. They dare God to do something about it. Okay? And so that's what Nebuchadnezzar's doing. All right, so now we get to then their response. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, or to King Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you about this. If our God, whom we serve, exists, he is able to save us from the flaming furnace of fire. So let him save us from your hand, your majesty. But if not, let it be known to you, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods, and we will not worship the statue of gold that you set up. All right, so here you get their defiance. All right, so first of all, as you get their defiance, look what's going on. It says, we don't even have to discuss this. You know, it's kind of like, okay, what are you going to do now? Talk it among yourselves, you three. Talk it among yourselves. What are you going to do? Are you going to do what I tell you to do or not? Okay, and their answer is, we don't even need to discuss it. Mine's already made up. We just simply cannot and thus will not serve your gods. Period. Do what you want with us. We're not going to do it. I mean, it's just that blanket statement for them, and it's like now the way they phrase it, it makes it sound like, because they say if our God whom we serve exists. They're not saying we're not really sure if he exists or not. You kind of know how it works. They're simply saying he's our God. Period. He'll do whatever he wants. If he wants to save us, he'll save us. If he doesn't, he doesn't. But that doesn't change anything. He's still our God. Period. Okay? Now this is really cool because they are not making demands on God, and they aren't saying, God, you got to save us because we're standing up for you. They're not saying that. They're just saying God's God. period. So this is, I don't know, a teaching that is really, when I learned it a long time ago, when we did our study on Job, is the most powerful teaching I kind of ever remember. Okay, you may have remembered this way back when we did this. We'll let you see it in a little bit. It's Latin, of course. Caritas versus cupiditas. All right, now, I'll ask you this question, and then I'll explain this. And you can answer if you want. You may not want to because you feel like you might probably say you're going to have the wrong answer. And if you don't answer, I'll answer what you probably think you're going to answer. Why do you serve and trust in God? Now, your answer will probably be because he loves me and has saved me. That's good. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's not the right answer. The answer is because he's God. Period. And he's God. He's just God. How does Job say this? This is classic. This is Job 13:5. Job, classic. I mean, I just love this. This is awesome because Job nailed it. And this is why we did this when we were doing the study of Job. 20 years, not that long ago, but long time ago. He said regarding God, though he slay me, you know the rest of it? Though he slay me, or trust him. Yeah, either way, I'm not sure what the literal Hebrew was. Though he slay me, yet I will trust him. Yeah, but what he's saying is he can kill me, send me to hell, but he's still God. He's not saying he'll send me to hell, but he's just saying, but that's his point. He is God, period. Just that, the awesomeness of his very being requires me to trust him or serve him or obey him or honor him. Just that. Okay, and this is caritas versus cupiditas, because this was Adam and Eve before they sinned. This is all of us. The goal is to get back to this, which we'll never do perfectly, but we can, to a degree. That's the goal, to get back to that. Okay, cupiditas, you get the word Cupid, right? Okay, I don't even know what caritas means literally in Latin. St. Augustine came up with, is where I first read about this, St. Augustine. And in fact, it came up again when we were just doing this thing on Pelagianism during the midweek VBS thing. This is it. He says, caritas is love that's pure love with no reciprocation. Cupiditas is, why do you love, like Cupid falling in love with somebody? Why do you love another person, fall in love with a person? Because they make me feel good. Or they do things for me. So ultimately, what's it really about? It comes back to me. It's about what they do for me. So that's why I said, why do you love God? And most likely the answer is going to be because he loves me. But what if he didn't love you? Well, it's Job. What if he didn't love you? What if he took all 10 of your kids away, all your wealth away, took all your health away, and he says, okay, what are you going to do now? Because that's the whole point of Job, right? The whole test of Job that Satan gives. The only reason why he loves you or worships you is because you give him stuff. And God says, do what you want. So Satan does. And when it's all done, Job says, though he slay me, yet I will trust him. You can take everything away from me, you're still my God. Because it's not what you give me that makes me worship you. It's just who you are. That's it. It's an awesome thing. Because again, every one of us is right here. Okay, at Cupiditas. We love God because of what he gives us. And we should love God for what he gives us, but that shouldn't be the only reason. And hopefully it's not. Okay, because this is what St. Augustine was saying. We have to move from here to here. Love God for who he really is. So that if your life is a total disaster, and you still think it's God's fault, because Job thought it was God's fault. If it's a total disaster, you still think it's God's fault, you don't curse him. He's God. How dare I curse the Almighty God of the universe beyond all human comprehension? How dare I curse him? I can't. He's God. I will love him no matter what. So you see, that's what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are doing. So he's my God. So whatever he does with us, if he lets us fry to a crisp, doesn't matter. He's God. Now, hopefully you get this, because if you get this, this will really radically change your life. Because you will just have this attitude of God that just so overwhelms you that it's like, I don't really need to be so focused on things or what happens in my life, events in my life, because it doesn't change who God is. He's still my God. No matter what, he's still my God. And then ultimately, real quick, ultimately, this is Jesus. My God, why have you forsaken me? He still says, you're my God, even though you put me in hell. Jesus had caritas, right? So you can put me in hell, and I will suffer for billions of people's billions of sins, and you're still my God. It's not like, curse you, God, damn you, God, for what you're doing to me. No, it's like, you're my God. That's it. Okay, go ahead.
From the Latin, caritas means love.
Oh, okay.
Cupidia.
Yeah, cupiditas. Yeah. Yeah, okay, and that's actually, okay, oh, I'm glad you said that, because this is, how does this come out in Augustine, which comes out in the Lutheran Confessions? Another C word, concupiscence. Okay, this is, if you read the Lutheran Confessions, concupiscence, that is lust. And that doesn't just mean sexual desire. I mean, a lust just means what I desire because I want stuff. Okay, and that's what we all have. This is in curvatus se, that my mind is now curved towards me. Okay, this is what's in it for me. That's why so many people worship God. What's in it for me? So when God doesn't give them something, what do? They leave him and they curse him. All right? That's not a saving love really right here, okay? But that's what they do. That's why, and sadly often we do this. How do we try to get people to want to become Christians? Oh, God will love you. God will do this for you. God will bless you and do all this. But what if he doesn't? And see, now you're stuck, because what if he doesn't? What if you're in a third world country and someone wants to become a Christian, they become a Christian, and now they're thrown in jail and they're being tortured. You didn't tell them that was going to happen, okay? So now what, all right? So it becomes God's God, period. And that's why I worship him, not because what he does for him. Yeah. Yeah, because God knew Job's heart, right? And Job didn't, or Satan didn't. Yeah, that's true. And of course, the question is, does he have it in me, right? Does he have that confidence in me? And in American society, it's kind of hard to think that he would, because so many of us in America, if one thing goes bad, God, why'd you do this, moaning and all that, whereas many people in the world, their life is bad because they're Christians, and yet God's still their God. But do you understand this? I don't want to keep going on, but this is a hugely important point. Okay, and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are the prime example. Of course, Job isn't, and like I said, Jesus is too. The prime example of why you worship God, because he's God, period. Now, thank God he overwhelms us with blessings, right? But even should he not, he's still my God. That's how it should always be. So that's what they do, right? Okay, and so what they're saying is, I'll just leave that up there. They're saying, you can do whatever you want to us. It's not going to change anything. And if God can do whatever he wants to us, that's not going to change anything. He's still God, and we're still going to worship him. Okay, but you also get in this line, in a way, what Jesus will later say in Matthew 10, fear not those who can kill the body but cannot kill the soul, but rather fear him who is able to destroy both body and soul in hell. Okay, so they're saying, weighing the options, fear you or fear God. Worship you or worship God. If we bow to you, our lives will be spared. But if we don't bow to God, our soul will be lost. Okay? So it's a matter of priorities, right? Which is it going to be? Am I going to, for expediency's sake, I'm going to save my life now, but then ultimately suffer in hell? Or am I going to rather suffer now and enjoy eternal life? Okay, so that's kind of the other point you got here. Okay, so we got that done, right? But don't ever forget that. Not just because of this lesson, but because of our lives in general. All right, so then we get to now the next section, starting in verse 19. All right, so they say this in Nebuchadnezzar. So first of all, imagine this. They're probably about 25 years old, these guys now, and they're standing for the most powerful man in the world who's known to be a very, not just arrogant and egotistical, but very violent man. He's known to be, he just said, if you can't, right before, in the chapter before, if you can't tell me my dream, I'm going to kill you all. Okay, to all of his wise men, tell me my dream, not even just to interpret, tell me the dream. If you can't, I'm going to kill you. All right, so you know how violent he can be. So they just told him this. And so what did they basically say to Nebuchadnezzar in front of everybody who's listening? In your face, there you go. In your face, buddy. Right, exactly. See, that's the modern translation, right? But that is really it, right? They said that to him. Yeah, in your face. Do what you want. You have no power over us at all. And this is fascinating. If you ever read any of the early church fathers and read the writings where they talk, when you have accounts of Christians being martyred for their faith, they're basically saying the same thing. They're basically saying, you do what you want. You can't touch us. My God has already saved my soul for eternity. You can do whatever you want to this body. He's going to redeem this body eventually anyway. Do whatever you want. You can't touch me. I'm untouchable. All right, and so they do that. So all right, so that's it. So now Nebuchadnezzar, verse 19, was filled with rage. All right, needless to say, right? And the expression of his face changed towards Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. All right, so actually, just stop right there. So what's interesting about this is that they're told to bow down before this statue. All right, a statue that is just permanent, just doesn't change at all, has whatever face they made the statue to look like, is just there, okay? All right, and so they're told to bow before that thing that's just a thing that doesn't do anything, all right? But really, they're recognizing the real power is not there. The real power is Nebuchadnezzar, because his face does change. So he went from this, going to extend some tolerance to these guys, to now he's raging, furiously mad, raging. His face is burning and all that, okay? And that's what you got here. So he said to heat the furnace 7 times hotter than was normal to heat it. All right, now that doesn't literally mean 7 times. Okay, this is one of those times where we say, okay, and this is why the dispensational premillennialists, we kind of have fun with them on this one. Of course, they always make fun of us too. But was it really literally 7 times hotter? This furnace is really hot enough, all right, to bake or to fire pottery. It's hot enough to fire pottery, which I don't know what you have to be, 200, 300 degrees or something like that. And you're really going to think you can heat this up 7 times more? Okay, without only just with the natural stuff you have there, so it's not true. He actually calculated. I forgot where read it somewhere that normally it would be this. We're talking like 3,000 degrees that this is going to have to be. And in that day, you really think they can heat up something to that much? No, they can't. But he just says, burn it. Just really intensify this furnace. Which actually, now you think about it, that's defeating the purpose. Because what does he want these guys to do? He wants them to suffer. But if it's 7 times hotter, you're gone in a second, right? So it's really defeating the purpose. It should be cool it down and let them roast for a while. That's literally what they did to early Christians, the Romans did. They put them on a grill, like we put on a hamburger on a grill. They put Christians on grills and roasted them. Okay, that's literally what they did. The Romans did. All right, so he kind of defeats the purpose, but that's not the point. Okay, moving on. And he ordered some men, soldiers from his army, to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in order to throw them into the flaming furnace of fire. Then these men were bound in their coats, their pants, their turbans, and their clothes, and they were thrown into the midst of the flaming furnace of fire. Okay, just right there, we'll stop. Okay, why do you think Daniel thought it was important to emphasize what they're wearing? Do you think? Well, everything's flammable. That's true, but there might be more than one reason. I hadn't thought about that one. And one of the reasons might be because normally they might have been you would strip them and throw them in the fire, humiliate them or something like that. But it seems like really what's going on is he is so mad that he says, "We're not waiting another minute. We're doing it now," because that's what they're wearing now. Because they're provincial officials, they're already wearing that. It's like immediately bind them, throw them. That's it. Find my strongest men, who are probably his bodyguards right there next to him. Bind these guys, throw them in there now. We're not wasting another second. We're getting rid of these guys. So emphasizes his fear, his anger. Okay, and then verse 22. Because the king's order was urgent and the furnace was heated excessively, those men who carried Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the flame of the fire killed them. Right? You all know that, right? You've been next to a campfire that got really heated up. You can't stay too close to that fire, right? Or a bonfire, not really a campfire, but a bonfire. You get next to that, you're singeing hairs on your arms and stuff. Okay, so they died. So he lost his strongest men, a few of them there. But these three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell into the flaming furnace of fire, bound. All right, so when it says fell, and that's the idea, they found some of these old furnaces, archaeologists have found this, and they would throw things in from the top, or put it in from the top. So there's a lid or whatever, and they threw the men in. So that's what it says, they fell into the fiery furnace. That's just explaining how it happened. Okay. And then King Nebuchadnezzar was startled. He immediately stood up. He said to his counselors, "Didn't we throw 3 men into the midst of the fire bound?" They answered the king, "Certainly, your majesty." Okay, we stop there. All right, so we get this. Apparently there's a window. Yeah, evidently there's a window. I don't know how that window would have, because it can't be an open thing because all the heat would go out. So there's some sort of a window. So get this, immediately. See, the emphasis is on the word immediately, okay? So Nebuchadnezzar is expecting to see them fry it to a crisp in seconds. So he's watching. As soon as they get thrown in, he's watching. But before they get thrown in, because the soldiers already got burned alive, okay? So they're already protected from that moment on, which we naturally understand, right? They're already protected. And so he looks up and he said, "Didn't we throw 3 men?" They said, "Yes." Okay, then verse 25. "Look, I see 4 men loosed and walking around in the midst of the fire with no injury. Moreover, the appearance of the 4th is like a son of God, of God's." All right, so that's the key, is two parts to this one, right? What does he see? Okay, he sees 4, not 3. And actually, another part to that part is, what does he notice about the 3 men he threw in? They're just walking around. They're not sweating even, all right? They're just walking around. So I don't know what walking around, I don't think that furnace is a huge, huge thing, but the idea is they're not suffering, right? But they're just standing there, totally fine. It's just, again, what the temperature felt like for them, I wonder, right? Oh, does? Okay. Yeah. He didn't say anything about how Nebuchadnezzar was able to see into it. It just says that he looked inside. Could be. The air going into it. Yeah, it could be the vent for the, yeah, okay.
You have to put your fuel in there.
Yeah, right. And yeah, okay. So it may not have been a window.
Just an opening or a cave.
Yeah, okay. Somehow he's able to see in there, right? And able to see without him being hurt. Okay, I mean, this fire is really hot, so he's able to see in there without being hurt. So I don't know how much distance he has or what protection there is for him.
Just got to have to get your fuel in there and get it lit,
Okay. I get it. Okay, so we got it now. So he sees 3 guys walking around, and not only that, but they're no longer tied. All right, the only thing that burned up, if it did burn up, we don't know if it burned up or just got loose from them, are the binds. Okay, their clothes are totally fine. Everything's about them is fine. But then that's a key. The second key, which is a little bit greater than the first one, is what does it say about the 4th one? So he didn't look just like one of them, right? He looks like a son of the gods. What that means, we have no idea. But now, obviously, he's speaking from the viewpoint of a polytheist, man who believes in many, many gods. So when he says a son of of gods, not even the gods, just a son of gods, plural. He's just speaking from his viewpoint as a polytheistic worshiper, okay? So he's saying there's a bunch of gods. This one looks like one of their sons. I don't know why he would come to that, what that means, but somehow the fourth man does not look like the three men. But he does look like a human, but not just a human. Now, we know this to be who? This is Jesus, okay? The Son of God. It's not really Jesus, okay, but yeah. It's the Son of God. The pre-incarnate Christ, okay? That's who this is. Now, and honestly, he writes up a lot about what other people have said about this, but the early church fathers from that time on, they all pretty much all believe this is the pre-incarnate Christ, and we do too, okay? But that's significant. Okay, why is that significant? What did Nebuchadnezzar just say before he threw them in? Yeah, your God can't do anything to stop me. All right, so you got that now, all right? So that's good. So then, we won't elaborate, go on. So then Nebuchadnezzar approached the door of the flaming furnace of fire. He said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out. All right? Now, just that line, it's fun kind of slowing down and looking at these, okay? Who does he talk to? It's obvious. Who does he not address? The fourth man. He doesn't talk to the fourth man. Exactly. So we're going to get to that. Okay, we'll get to that. How stupid can you be, right? Okay. All right. So, but here he said he talks to the three guys, not to the fourth guy. But how does he address them? Servants of the Most High God. And then even the title, the Most High God. Okay, now, because what is he? He is now humbly acknowledging, yeah, I was wrong. You were right. Your God can save. Therefore, he is the Most High God. He's not just a God, because I can do that to gods, but I can't do anything to the Most High God. So he acknowledges that about them. Okay, and another reason why he may not be addressing the fourth man is because he has no authority over the fourth man. These three are still his servants. Okay, they were put in position by him. So, and the fourth man obviously is beyond his authority, and therefore beyond his commands. So he can if he were to address the fourth man, it's like the fourth man can do whatever he wants because he's not his servant. So that's a little point there, but that's kind of cool. So then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the midst of the furnace. The satraps, the prefects, and the governors, and the royal counselors gathered and looked at these men. All right, so again, you realize there are a bunch of people watching this whole scene. All of these rulers are waiting on waiting on, what's the phrase? I forgot it. Pins and needles, or with anxiety. What it means you're waiting. Yeah, so waiting. Okay, we got it. You guys aren't helping me at all. Okay, all these great rulers, are the rulers in the lower echelons, okay, they're all there waiting and looking at this, okay? So the fire had no power over their bodies. The hair on their head was not singed. Their coats were not different, and the smell of fire had not come on them.
This is the other reason that it was mentioned earlier, the fact that he knew that it was not going to have any effect on those clothes.
Okay, yeah. That's why Daniel mentioned that at the beginning. Yeah, he's leading. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point, yeah. He knows how he's going to finish the story, so he wants to make sure you know the clothes were there at the start and the clothes are there at the end. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so that'd be why he mentioned them too. All right, so obviously they see that. Everyone sees that. We don't need to elaborate on that, right? We all know what that means, although it is kind of fascinating. There's these three guys standing there now. They're not even sunburned, okay? And all of these, who knows how many, maybe hundreds? I don't know, maybe not hundreds. I don't know. All these people standing there looking at them, just gawking, like, what in the world? Okay, all right. So then verse 28, Nebuchadnezzar said, blessed, because we're going to finish this section, blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his angel and saved his servants who trusted in him and changed the king's command. Okay, they gave their bodies so that they would not reverence or worship any god except their God. All right, so what does he do? I mean, Nebuchadnezzar, to his credit at this time, admits his mistake. Right? He said, this God, you don't mess with this God. Their God you don't mess with, because their God is able to save when no other God could. All right. And then also, they say, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego." So he's actually acknowledging Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, what they did. But what they did is showing their total trust in God. So they're saying they had every reason to trust. He's saying they had every reason to trust in God, because He is able to do this. All right. So now it said He sent His angel. That's the thing. That's when people say, oh, that can't be the pre-incarnate Christ. Well, no, the word angel just means messenger. Okay, and Jesus is the one sent from God, so He is in a way like an angel, but He's not an angel. He's the second person. So it just means He sent His messenger. All right, and so He acknowledged they gave their bodies. They won't worship any other God. So verse 29, so from me is issued an order that every people, nation, and language that speaks any blasphemy against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be dismembered, and his house shall be turned, get this, and his house shall be turned into a pile of rubble, because there is no other God who is able to save like this. Okay? Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah. Now, it's interesting he said that, though. He doesn't actually say you have to believe in Him. He just says you cannot blaspheme Him. And that's not a subtle point. That's actually a very important point. Because He's not going to believe in Him as far as I'm going to put my whole trust in Him. He's just going to say, I believe He exists and that He is very powerful, but I'm still going to have my own gods, which is the stupidity of Him. It's like, if this God can do the best of all, then why not give up everything and trust in Him? Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, where's God when times are tough? Yeah, He's nothing. He's a wimp. Yeah, right. Yeah, because Nebuchadnezzar, like most people, but particularly Nebuchadnezzar, is impressed by power, not by suffering. I know, that's what I'm saying. He definitely is, but we are too. And that's why interesting you say that, because so many denominations now are getting away from preaching the message of the cross, because that's a suffering servant. Okay, suffering servant, not the powerful ruler of all. They want to hear the resurrection. They want to hear Jesus ruling over all. They want to hear about a suffering servant. Okay, so he is impressed by that. So it is interesting, though. So what ends up happening through this whole scene is notice he says, every people, nation, and language. The whole empire now has got this order that this God of the Jews, they're not don't mess with Him. He doesn't say you have to believe in Him. He just says don't mess with Him. Don't mess with the God of the Jews. Absolute worshiper? Yeah. Right. He should. Yeah, right. And he should. We still all should. I mean, but that becomes it. Politically, it's not expedient for him to do that. Right? And then, I don't have time to go on all that, but that's actually an interesting point. Politically, I mean, I just can't do this, because, not saying that he's wrestling with this thought in his mind anyway, but if I were to give up my gods, then my people would rebel against me. But see, but he should, though, still, because what did he just learn? God can still save you from that, too, if He wanted to. So he's not going to do that. But like you're saying, he's just elevating the Jews' God. That's basically how he sees it. The Jews' God, who has a name, the Most High. That's His name here. He elevates Him to the highest of gods, but there's still all these other gods. Right. So that's why we know he's not a believer, because the very first commandment he refuses to acknowledge, because he will have that God, but he'll still have all the other gods. Right. So he'll still have them all. So, but he does, but again, like we said, way back when we started the Daniel studies, what's so significant about the Daniel study is that before the captivity, God was really seen as the God of that tiny little sliver of land there in Israel. Now he's being announced by the most powerful man in the world as the most powerful God in the world. Exactly. So you see how God is even using this. And he's not a self-serving God, isn't, but how he's using this to exalt his name so that ultimately everyone can now, or people can come to know who he is as the Savior. Okay, so that's what you got there, because it does. God is able to save them. So then the chapter ends the way the chapter began, or really the way the last chapter ended. This chapter ends the way chapter 2 ended. It ends with the line, "Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon." All right? See, in chapter 2, at Daniel's request, they were given, appointed, in chapter 2, verse 49, it says, "Moreover, at Daniel's request, the king appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego administrators over the province of Babylon." So now, that must have been a lower level. So now they're promoted even higher above that. So the guys who are out to get Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego, ooh, that backfired. Okay, now they're even more powerful. Okay, so that's how it ends. All right, so that's chapter 3. It's obviously we all know the story of the fiery furnace, but I tell you, this is a very powerful thing, particularly when you understand this whole aspect to it. Okay, but also the how God works in his people. And to get his name exalted. All right, so next week, again, chapter 4. Let's see, what's next? And then the week after that, I'll be on vacation. But we will have a guest pastor, and he will be here. Well, that's Labor Day weekend. He will be here to have a lesson. Okay, it won't be on Daniel. So get to meet the guest pastor then on September 1st. Although he has COVID now, so hopefully he'll be over that by then. He should by then. That's two weeks away. Okay, so... you can come to, don't just skip class because I'm not here, because he'll still have a class. You'll like him. What? The guest pastor. Oh, who is he? You don't know him. I just turned it off now.